Case study number 1, Tesoro. Tesoro is a 7-year-old 16-2 PRE gelding. Tesoro's owner, Gemma, was concerned about his levels of soundness, and while he didn't appear particularly lame, he wasn't quite right and he just didn't seem happy. She had some radiographs taken and the vet recommended changing the hoof balance, but he didn't really give any guidance as to what that was or what it looked like. Gemma referred herself to vet physio Yasmin Stewart, who referred Gemma to us, and also to the vet for further investigation. The vet suspected there might be something with the stifles, but to change the hoof balance and see what happened. So we first visited Tesoro and Gemma on the 25th of November last year, 2023. We documented before and after his posture and his hoof morphology. And we gave Gemma some trimming instructions to follow and to provide photographs on a weekly basis so that we could provide guidance on the trim. Now, the difference in Tesoro in 7 weeks was incredible. Gemma said there were changes in behaviour, demeanour and posture, but also he was really happy to be trimmed. Previous to this, he would become almost aggressive, intolerant of having his legs touched. And he made it very clear he just didn't want to stand on 3 legs. But we were blown away with the difference in Tesoro when we visited him, January. And he would stand almost perfectly content on 3 legs to be trimmed. And we were really happy. More to the point, so was the vet. In fact, all of Gemma's team members said that actually now it's okay to start postural rehabilitation therapy in hand. Gemma and I, in fact all the team members, felt that the objective documentation giving evidence to the changes were really helpful in confirming what we could all see, and that we felt that Tesoro now had a positive outlook. And it really helped in aiding good communication between everybody. So I asked the question, is having a healthier base of support allowing the unravelling of postural tension, and does this reveal more about Tesoro's development and maybe underlying potential health issues? I think it's diagnostically a powerful way of working from this integrative perspective. In the top photograph taken in November, you can see a very clear camped under posture. His hind legs are way underneath him and he would lean over his front legs. And while the symptom, if you like, of not being able to stand very well, to have his feet picked out or trimmed, was of concern, it is really just a symptom of the whole picture. So let's take a look at the radiographs. The radiographs weren't taken at exactly the same time as the photographs. And they clearly show a lack of phalangeal alignment. We can see a bone angle of the long pastern bone of 63, and then the short pastern bone 61 down to 50 in the pedal bone. And even though that gave a positive palmar angle of 4 degrees, it really does call into question the popular belief, which is just a belief, it hasn't ever been scientifically confirmed, that a palmar angle should be a particular number, but a range of 2 to 5 is generally thought of to be okay in the industry. But I don't think it is. I think we really need to be taking a longer look at the whole picture of posture and hoof, and what both of them together might inform us as to what a particular horse requires in terms of palmar angle, alignment, and therefore hoof morphology, in order for that individual horse to function and perform at its very best. And again, with this particular type, this PRE, I believe Iberian horses typically have an upright, sometimes a short pastern conformation. And for the action of this breed, I believe that they require a more upright hoof shape to match that higher pastern angle and to match the movement and biomechanics of that particular breed. And also, if you look at the length of Tesoro's pedal bone, but also in relation to where the heel touches the ground, there really isn't very little space in the back of his current foot for all of those tissues to work correctly. The conformation, or should we say the morphology of those tissues, just doesn't seem to work for this particular horse. And I think that's why it's leading towards, let's call it discomfort, perhaps even inflammation and pain. We don't really know. But I think that all of those tissues are informing the horse via what we call postural input to then precipitate postural changes that then essentially could create discomfort in the entire horse, which can radically change the nervous system and the hormonal system, in fact, all of the systems of the horse. And we can see on the X-ray that there really is inadequate sole depth. And there are some schools of thought that suggest that the sole thickness at the underside of the front aspect or the tip of the pedal bone should equal, at the very least, the thickness of the wall in that region, which it doesn't in this particular example. And in the photograph, what we can see is a broken back hoof pastern axis. And that's similar to what we're seeing in the radiographs. But remember, there was a time difference between the radiograph and the photograph. There's a relatively, what could be considered a relatively normal or healthy coronet band angle. And it's fairly straight. There isn't a great deal of distortion in the coronet itself. And I do sometimes see a lack of distortion in horses with dorsal palmar imbalance, which this horse has. There are unhealthy base proportions. There is what we could call a long toe and an underrun heel. And we have wall distortions. And you can see very faintly there are some metabolic growth rings in this horse's foot. All of these things lead me to feel that there are unhealthy forces on this horse's hoof capsule. And I think a lot of this has to do with the gross dorsal palmar imbalance and the lack of vertical depth in the entire capsule. There's simply not enough structure to protect the dermis of the foot and protect the bony structure of the foot. And the foot has distorted in response to how it's been perhaps treated externally. Who knows? There's a heel and dorsal wall angle that isn't within 5 degrees, again pointing towards the long lever arm of the toe and the underrun short and low heel. There could be considered an unhealthy dorsal coronet angle, and we're discovering that this might be related to distortions and perhaps a pathological hoof morphology. And this is backed by the radiographs. You can see that there isn't a healthy foot inside of there. There isn't a healthy balance, and especially given the size of this horse and the conformation of the bones within the digit itself. When we view all of the hooves together from November until January and then potentially May the following year, we can see that the hoof capsule and the inner foot is moving up and back so that it's more underneath the bony column of the horse. And this seems to create what I observe as healthier posture and more comfortable horses, more relaxed horses with healthier biomechanics. And I've employed a traffic light system here where red is considered very unhealthy, amber is marginally unhealthy. We need to keep an eye on that parameter. And then green is ideal. So we want to see more green, less red. So we've got a broken back hoof pastern axis in November and still there in January. But we also know from radiographs that he does have significant phalangeal misalignment. And the coronet band angle actually isn't considered unhealthy at 21 degrees in November to 15 degrees in January. Perhaps maybe it's going to be 16 degrees. But it just again highlights that you don't just look at one aspect or one parameter and think, oh, we're okay, we've got an okay coronet band angle. And also remembering that we could have what appears to be a healthy coronet band angle of 21. And remember, the research sort of points to negative Palmer angles more towards 28 and above. This horse still had very low and negative Palmer angles, even at that angle. As one would imagine, as the hoof capsule moves underneath the bony column, the base proportions improve. Likewise, we have more height to the heel in relationship to the toe, so the heel to toe ratio is improving rapidly. And we can see in January that the toe to heel angle is improved, not quite ideal, but getting closer to ideal. The dorsal coronet angle hasn't changed, but you can see there's less disparity between the coronet band itself and the straight line of the COR coronet line going from the top of the dorsal wall to the end of the hairline at the heel. So for me, this indicates healthy improvements with a healthy adaptation, if you like, or development of those internal structures moving in the right direction. And then on the far right, we can see what I might consider is a healthy hoof. And you'll notice that I've sketched in a little arch at the ground surface of the hoof, so it doesn't sit completely flat to the floor. And I believe this is the true confirmation of a healthy foot. And that isn't artificially trimmed in necessarily, it's what is created when the hoof is healthy, and it allows for correct distortion, sometimes called longitudinal flexion. And we'll move to a hind foot. So now we'll take a look at Tesoro's left hind, and we can see this is what might be considered a long toe underrun heel, short heel. And there is an obvious broken back hoof pastern axis, and the hoof definitely isn't underneath the bony column like it should be. And we've got a very distorted coronet band. We've got a dorsal wall coronet band angle of 126. And we have unhealthy base proportions. We have an unhealthy heel to toe ratio. And of course, a toe to heel angle. And then if we move forward until January, it looks a significantly different hoof. And Tesoro's owner was following instructions to use wedged pads in boots for 24/7 wear almost, including turnout. And that has really changed his whole biomechanics and his posture, and has really allowed the hoof now to develop towards ideal alignment and hoof morphology. So he's still got a broken back hoof pastern axis, but actually the pastern angle is definitely more upright because the horse is standing with his leg much further back instead of being camped under. So in the first picture on the left in November, I think the broken back hoof pastern axis would have appeared much worse. And again, we know that there was negative palmar angle. Had he had been standing with all his weight down into the leg with it perpendicular to the ground, like it is in the central picture. So although it says, according to the numbers, it's a worse broken back hoof pastern axis and worse phalangeal alignment, I don't actually believe that to be the case, because the other parameters are informing me that things are definitely changing in the right direction. So the base proportions definitely look the same, but actually the whole capsule is moved back underneath the bony column. And we have different heel and dorsal wall angle, which is now considered healthy within 5 degrees. We have an improved dorsal wall coronet band angle. And again, there's less distortion discernible. It's much straighter, the coronet band in that region. So all in all, he is rehabbing beautifully. And the picture on the right demonstrates what I think could be his ideal hoof morphology. I definitely see more upright hooves in Iberian horses, and they're quite long and quite oval, and I think that represents their coffin bone shape, if you like. And I've indicated there a hoof score, so and you'll see it was on the previous slide as well. So with the picture at the start of rehab in November on the far left, I've indicated a hoof and body score of no more than 2 out of 10 based on assessment of the whole posture, the hoof morphology, and the size of the horse, the environment of the horse. There are many factors. It's quite an involved approach providing a hoof score, but essentially the lower the score, the less exercise and work the horse should really do, because it won't be able to withstand, say for example, ridden work or carriage driving or anything demanding. And then in the centre, I have indicated that perhaps now he's ready to start in-hand postural rehabilitation therapy. So walking out in hand, pillar work, balance through movement method exercises, very light, low intensity exercise focused on postural rehabilitation. And then the ideal hoof morphology on the right, I've indicated this could be, 8 out of 10. There is a lot that hoof could do and should do, given those healthy parameters. So that's Tesoro's hoof assessment and markups. Tesoro's owner Gemma kindly provided a testimonial, and this is in the PDF handout which accompanies this lesson, so you can read that in your own time. But I'll just read the very last sentence. Now I've been exposed to what healthy hooves should actually look like, I don't think I'll be able to unsee it. And as you can see there, Gemma is very inspired by what she's witnessed and seen, not just visually, but in the way that Tesoro is as a horse. His behaviour, his connection to them now is completely different. His relationship to Gemma is different, and yeah, he's really loving life. I'm delighted with their progress, I really am.